All right, time for a little synthetic division. So, as I said during the long division note, I am going to take each of these, or almost each of these, long division questions and turn them into synthetic division questions. So the first thing I have to show you is setup. Now, please make sure that whether you long divide or synthetic divide, you make sure you're in descending order with all gaps filled. So this question, just like before, isn't a problem. So I'm going to do a little bit of scribbling here, but then I'm going to drag it down to do, actually no, changing my mind in the middle of the note. I'm going to take this space right here and do my synthetic division, just to prove to you that it is really environmentally friendly. So the first thing is, let's go for purple. You take and make a big capital L. So if these are the lines on your page, you'll have a line here, a line on top, a line here, and you'll need some space under the bottom. So that's the spacing for it. Now I'm going to undo that because it really clutters in a second, but to continue, we need a placeholder or a number that takes care of the x cubed. Now that's 1x cubed, so I'm going to put 1. Then comes the x squared, so I'm going to put 13, positive. Then comes the x, so I'm going to put positive 39, and then comes the constant, so that's positive 46. So it lies on the top line. You will have to pull down this number and place it underneath. And then finally, you take x plus 9, you equal it to 0, you solve, and that number goes anywhere out here that you like, that you can fit it. So now I am going to take that stuff and get rid of it. So the step is, or the process is, multiply, divide, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, until you are out of numbers. So you multiply the number out front by the number beneath, put the answer in here, add. So that's 4. You multiply this number out front by the next number underneath, place it here, add. Take the number out front, multiply it by the next number underneath, and add. Rope off this last number as soon as you're out of numbers, and you end up with what's the remainder. So if you take a look at my work down here, the remainder is 19, so that matches. Now, where does the quotient come from? So this was a 1x cubed. This is 1 less degree, so it has to be an x squared. And as you work across here, you get a less degree each time. So this is an x to the 1, this is an x to the none. So that's 1x squared, positive 4x, positive 3, which is sitting right here. So you get the exact same quotient and the exact same remainder. You will already have the exact same dividend, because that's part of the question, and the exact same divisor. So that means you can make the exact same division statement. So I'm going to go on and I'm going to do the next one. And again, I'm going to show you how environmentally friendly it is, because I'm going to fit it in this space. So I make my big L. Notice how I don't need to draw it with a ruler. And then I take the original question, so 1y cubed. There is no y squared, so I need a placeholder. Then comes my y, which is a negative 28. Then comes my constant, which is a negative 41. Drop this number down. Then you take this set it equal to 0, solve, and place it out front. And now you can start with your synthetic division. So multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add until you're done. -4 times 1 is -4. Add. Put your answer beneath. -4 times -4 is +16. Add. That's -12. -4 times the number underneath, so -4 times -12 is 48. Add. That's +7. We're out of numbers. Rope it off. That's your remainder. Hey, that's your remainder. Now remember that this is a y question, so this is y cubed. That makes this 1 less, so that's a y squared. 1 less again, so that's a y to the 1. 1 less again, so that's a y to the none. And that is exactly what's sitting here, or if you prefer, in the quotient area of your long division. So same division statement as it should be. Now, here is where some things go wrong. So I'm going to direct your attention to the next slide, and we looked at this before. Polynomials must be in descending order of degree, so downhill, and must include placeholders, so the 0 in that last case. Now, long division works for all questions. That's why I said to you at the beginning of the previous note that long division is necessary for calculus, because although I'm putting a lot of effort into making sure that everything can be synthetically divided, not every question on the face of the earth is synthetically divided, and you will run into situations in calculus and vectors, which is the high school course that follows, or in a university or college setting. I can't change those questions, and you will need long division for those. So I can only set this course up. So synthetic division doesn't work, and I know I'm skipping on past slide 3 and into slide 4. Synthetic division doesn't work ever for divisors that look like this. Now it looks like this, meaning it's got an exponent. So if I look at those first two questions, my divisor was linear, degree 1. Second question, my divisor was linear, degree 1. Fifth question, can't do that. This is impossible to do by synthetic division. It is possible to do by long division, but impossible to do by synthetic division. Let's backtrack. This question is possible to do by synthetic division, but there's a trick, because although the divisor is linear, as I told you in the long division note, it's linear and it's got a coefficient that is not 1. It doesn't matter that it's 2, it matters that it's not 1. So let's go through synthetic division with this and see where the problem ends up happening. So I left this sheet blank at the end so that I could do my synthetic division. So draw your attention back to the question just briefly. Remember, this was out of order. Your dividend was out of order. We needed to put it in order, and then fortunately I have the ordered version right here. So I can put that in for my synthetic division work. Then I can take the divisor, which is this right here, 2x minus 1, and off to the side, or in my head, depending on which one works better today, I have to solve for x. So because it's got a coefficient that's not 1, I have an extra step, or an extra thought if you're not showing your work. And that number, even though it's a fraction, has to sit out front. You still have to drop down that first number, and then you can proceed like normal. Except, hopefully you can see already that this is not working out the same as the division statement. So a half times -6 is -3. Add 26. A half times 26 is 13. Add, that's 20. A half times 20 is 10. Add, carefully, that's -3. And that, as always, gets roped up off, and that is your remainder. So if you take a look, the remainder is just fine. This, however, is not. But it's close, because it's supposed to be -3x squared plus 13x plus 10. And because that's an x cubed, this is an x squared, and this is an x, and this is a non-x, so it's pretty close. And hopefully you look at it at that and say, oh, well, all I have to do to make the match is divide by 2. Well, that is this 2, or this 5, or this 7, or this 3. In this case, it's 2, so I can take all of those divided by 2 and end up with my real quotient, and that ends up being what you use in the division statement. Do not touch the remainder. It's just fine. So we have two last questions to look at. We could do this question by synthetic division if we wanted to. I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to, but it is possible. We could, if we wanted to, put -3 out here, and then 1x to the 6, -1x to the 5, +1x to the 4, -1x to the 3, +1x squared, -1x, +1 as your constant. Bring that down and do all your work. Very environmentally friendly, would take up far less room than doing this. Now I'm not going to do that. You can, if you choose, do that. It'll just work out fine. You'll just have a little bit extra work than what I did in the previous question. The last question we'll look at is this one, just for a practice. I'm just going to move this down a little bit. There are no other suggested questions. Actually, let's go here. Same things, or continue. So here is the dividend in order: -4x cubed, +6x squared, +4, -7. Drop this down. Just as a reminder, I'm always not going to give it to you in order. Sometimes you will have to put it in order, as I did, but I just needed the visual. Then I need to take 2x minus 3, solve, so to do this, in case your fractions are super rusty, that's 3 times -4 is -12, divided by 2 is -6. Add. 0. That's an easy question. Anything times 0 is 0. Add. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Add. It's -1. Remainder is just fine. However, this is not just fine. So you have to take whatever is sitting in the denominator, doesn't matter what number it is, and divide all of those except the remainder by it. So I end up with -2, 0, 2. This was an x cubed. That makes this an x squared. 0x number. Hey, not a coincidence. Remainder, not a coincidence. So when I look at this little statement, which was in the first and second notes for division, long division works for all questions. Synthetic division works for linear divisors only. When you have a linear divider that does not have a starting coefficient, you have a trick, and that trick is to divide by whatever the denominator of the fraction is. Or, if you choose to look at it this way, whatever the coefficient of the divisor is. So I will leave it like that. I'm hoping that that seemed as short to you as it did to me. Again, ask your questions. I am always here. This is my gig.